Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining in. I'm Kara with the application support team here at OMRI. If you've ever called OMRI with an application question, we've probably already met each other. I also have Amanda, a product review coordinator, who's here to moderate. She'll be monitoring the chat for the live Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions during the presentation, please add them to the chat at any time. This presentation will cover OMRI's role in the organic industry and give a general overview of our review process. We'll also address some of the most common questions we see. After about 30 minutes, we'll shift into a Q&A so that you can get answers to questions that you have on your mind. OMRI is a 501c3 nonprofit that reviews input materials such as fertilizers, feed additives, and processing aids for use in organic agriculture. We review products to the National Organic Program Guidelines and the Canada Organic Regime Guidelines. However, this presentation will focus just on the US Organic Guidelines specifically. Our review program was founded in 1997 to support the growth and trust of the global organic community. But before we go deeper into the OMRI review program, it is helpful to understand where OMRI fits into the organic sector. In general, organic food and fiber products are certified annually by accredited organic certifiers based on the rules and regulations determined by the National Organic Program. Farmers and producers need various inputs to grow, raise, and manufacture organic products. With so many input products on the market, it is difficult for people to quickly identify which inputs are allowed for use in accordance with organic regulations and which are not. OMRI helps certifiers and producers by reviewing these inputs so they know what products are allowed for use in organic production and publishes a list of approved products. OMRI has been ingrained in organics for the past 25 years, and over time there have been some common misconceptions that we'll clear up today. The first one, OMRI listed products are not considered certified organic. The term certified organic is reserved for food and fiber products. Instead, OMRI reviews inputs for use in organic agriculture and processing. For example, we review fertilizers used to grow organic carrots. Our products are referred to as for use in organic production rather than certified organic. The second one, many consumers and farmers think that once a product is OMRI listed, it can be used in any application. However, some products come with use restrictions stipulated by the NOP that certifiers must approve before their use. The third one, OMRI is not a regulatory agency. We review input products for organic use based on the published NOP guidelines and policies. We cannot modify or change the rules. However, we encourage applicants to participate in the process and submit their concerns or frustrations regarding the organic regulations to the National Organic Standards Board during their public comment periods that occur twice a year. And the last one, OMRI does not evaluate product efficacy. However, we do make sure that there are no false or misleading label claims or inconsistencies with the product formulation and marketing materials. When you see the OMRI seal on a product, it means that it is independently verified by a team of experts and approved for use in organic agriculture or processing. This service helps organic certifiers easily identify products and materials that are compliant with organic standards without having to review the materials, ingredients, and manufacturing process themselves. The seal also informs home gardeners what products are approved organic inputs. To do our jobs effectively, we need to know a lot about the product you make. For example, we'll ask about your manufacturing process, formula, ingredient information, and depending on the types of materials you use, specific labs may be required for a complete product application. As a nonprofit, our review program is largely funded by the fees we collect for our services. For your first new product application, OMRI collects a company fee based on the total annual gross sales for your company, as well as a product fee based on the complexity of the product. If your company submits additional products for review, there would be additional product fees, but no additional company fee. When you have listed products, there are also annual company and product renewal fees. The online application will calculate fees for you and allow you to pay fees via the checkout process when you complete the application. Before we dive into the ins and outs of the review program, let's go over a few key terms that will appear in our discussion today. You'll notice the terms synthetic and non-synthetic are mentioned a lot in the organic regulations. So we'll define those terms now. The first one, synthetic, a substance that is formulated or manufactured by a chemical process or by a process that chemically changes a substance extracted from naturally occurring plant, animal, or mineral sources. And the second one, non-synthetic ingredient, a substance that is derived from mineral, plant, or animal matter and does not undergo a synthetic process. In general, non-synthetic ingredients are allowed and synthetic ingredients are prohibited by the US organic guidelines. The National Organic Program developed the national list as an exception to this generalized rule. They're a unique list for crop production, livestock rearing, and processing and handling that allow synthetic substances in specific instances, as well as some natural ingredients that are prohibited. For example, ash derived from burning manure is prohibited as an ingredient in crop products, although it is still considered a non-synthetic material. Let's move on to a breakdown of the review process now that we've covered the basics. OMRI's review process starts as soon as you submit your product application online. After you submit your application, there is an administrative review, a technical review, and final product evaluation by the review panel. It is important to realize that during the various stages of the review process, different OMRI staff may contact you. If you lose track of where you are in the review process or who your reviewer is, you can call in and we will connect you to the right person. After you purchase an application kit to set up a company account on omri.org, you can log in to submit your first application online. OMRI has a responsive online application system that will tell you what you need to submit based on how you answer each question. You can save your progress as you go and return later with additional information or create draft version of applications. A draft application can help your company understand the types of questions you'll be asked or the type of information that you'll need to submit. You also have a ton of application resources. Oh, we also have a ton of application resources on our YouTube channel, which you can easily view by clicking the YouTube icon at the top of our homepage. I think it skipped ahead one. There we go. Alrighty. During the application process, you'll be asked to select a use class and category based on your product's intended use. OMRI refers to this classification as the scope of your product. The NOP structures organic input materials into these use classes for crops, livestock, and processing products. Each use class is further divided into categories. You will need to select a use class and category for your product in the online application. For example, if you have a crop fertilizer made of seaweed, you would select the use class for crop fertilizers and soil amendments, and then the category that best fits your product. The closest related category is probably the one for seaweed and seaweed products, but there's also one for aquatic plant products. The category you select determines how consumers locate your product on the OMRI products list, as well as which rules and regulations are considered when we review your product. Keep in mind that you won't be able to invent categories, so your choices will be restricted to the categories already in our system. If you need assistance determining which scope is appropriate for your product, OMRI's application support team is happy to help you. The online application will ask for your product formula and manufacturing process. For example, there is a formulation section where you will enter any ingredients and their percentage of the final product. Every product has a formula, even if it is made of a single ingredient. You also have the option to enter alternate formulations in case your formula changes throughout the year, or you have different ingredients depending on what's available in the market. I'm going to show the online application really quick here. Move this out of the way. So this is the online application, and we're in the formulation section. I'm going to click edit on a formula that I started. Normally you would click add formulation to start a formula, but I have one sort of started as an example here. To add ingredients, I created them with the create new ingredient button, and I created 2 for a little example. So he goes over here into the formulation section. So that tells me it's in my formula now. And then if I want to enter a second one, it'll ask if this is an ingredient in the final product or if it's an alternate supplier. I'm going to say it's an ingredient in the final product and then click add. You'll enter a percentage. So this is percentages by weight in the final product. It'll also have you enter the function of your ingredients, which is just as basic as why is this ingredient included in your product. Sometimes it's an active ingredient or an inert ingredient. Maybe for compost, it would be like CN ratio related, but all right, that is that. So OMRI's YouTube channel has a series of videos that go deeper into the formulation section. So check those out if you're interested in learning more. You'll also be asked to provide a complete written description of the manufacturing process for your final product. The description should begin at the very start of your process and end with the packaging step. If your product is made of a single synthetic substance, you will not be required to provide a manufacturing process description. After you enter your formulation, you'll be asked to report specific ingredient information, like the manufacturer and supplier of each ingredient. Each type of ingredient, be it synthetic, certified organic, non-synthetic, or an OMRI listed product, require specific identifying documents. First one, OMRI listed products require a proof of purchase, a letter of intent to sell, or ingredient sales quote that is less than a year old. 2, if the ingredient is non-synthetic, you'll provide a written description of the ingredient manufacturing process as provided by the ingredient manufacturer. And number 3, if the ingredient is certified organic, you'll be prompted to upload a certified organic certificate and a proof of purchase for that ingredient. And the last one, if the ingredient is synthetic, you'll provide a CAS number for the chemical number. At the end of the application, you'll be prompted to upload required documentation like ingredient invoices, lab analysis, or product labels. If a lab analysis is required, your company would need to send a sample of your product to an accredited lab for analyzation and then upload the lab report to the application. It's best to wait until you've completed the application to send your sample in, since the application will tell you exactly what type of lab analysis you need for your product. The next step of the review process is called pre-review. Here, OMRI staff will verify that we have sufficient documentation to move forward. If there are missing documents, staff will reach out to collect them. You will have 30 days to meet the submission deadline, but if you need more time, there are extensions available. Once the pre-review phase is complete, your product will continue on to technical review. During this phase, a product review coordinator will perform a technical review of all ingredients and manufacturing processes to see if your product information and manufacturing process are in compliance according to the NOP guidelines. It is not uncommon for your reviewer to reach out during this time to ask clarifying questions or request more specific information, which will be required to continue the review. If you have any questions about what OMRI has requested, reach out to the product review coordinator for help. Once all the needed information is gathered, your reviewer will prepare a complete review file and provide that to the review panel with a compliance recommendation. While the panel evaluates your product, they may have additional questions. If this occurs, the technical reviewer handling your product application will share any questions with you. Once the panel has reached a decision, you can expect some of the potential outcomes listed here. Your product is allowed for a specific use as described by the use class and category, or it could be allowed with restrictions. Certain materials like synthetic micronutrients, for example, carry specific use instructions, which are detailed on the OMRI listed certificate for the product. A prohibited evaluation means that there is some ingredient or manufacturing process that is not allowed for use in organic agriculture. Applicants are given the option to appeal or rebut this decision or change the product to remove the problematic ingredient or manufacturing process. Occasionally, we see novel products or processes that challenge our understanding of the organic regulations. If the panel determines that your product is unresolved, it means that the panel is requesting guidance from industry experts to help interpret the organic regulations under question. If they cannot make a determination in a fixed amount of time, your product could be forfeited with a refund of the product fees paid. Now that we've covered the OMRI review process, let's look at some common questions we see from applicants before we open the door to general questions that are in the chat. Can OMRI give advice? This is a challenging question for staff who really want to be helpful, but are restricted from consulting. OMRI staff cannot consult or provide product recommendations, but we can elaborate on organic policy and regulations, help guide you through the application and review process, and explain OMRI policy and information requirements. Can you change your product mid-review? You can. You just have to let us know. Technical changes like those listed on the right will require a fee, while administrative changes listed on the left do not. To report your changes to OMRI, you can fill out a change report form and pay a fee, or talk with the administrative or technical reviewer who's currently working on your product review to see what's required. What if you can't get what OMRI needs for the review? It's not uncommon for applicants to have some difficulty providing OMRI with all the information that is required. Sometimes ingredient manufacturers are not willing to share confidential information directly with their customers. If this is the case, we have an option to set up a third-party agreement that allows the ingredient manufacturer to send OMRI the information directly, which is kept completely confidential from your company. That way, we get what we need to review the product, and ingredient manufacturers can keep their information confidential. This service requires a fee and some extra paperwork. You can submit a product change to remove or substitute any ingredient if you do not want to organize a third-party agreement. This requires a change fee and the submission of new ingredient information. The final option is to withdraw your product and reapply later, but please consider that withdrawn products do forfeit all the fees paid. What if you don't make your product yourself? That is okay. OMRI considers that to be a co-packer relationship. If your product is made by a co-packer, then we'll need the same information from the co-packer in order to review your product. If your company name does not appear on ingredient invoices or supporting documents, OMRI staff will reach out for an explanation of your co-packer relationship. Another example of a product you may not make yourself is what we call a repackaged product. If you would like to sell an OMRI listed product under a different product or company name, and you are not modifying the original OMRI listed product in any way, this includes adding water, then your product may qualify as a repackaged product. Applying as a repackaged product comes in handy if you would like to sell the same product under multiple product or company names, or if another company makes a product that you want to repackage with your own label. One benefit of repackaging is a cost savings in application and renewal fees for multi-ingredient products because all repackaged products are charged the same as a single ingredient product. Qualifying products are in the same ruling body as the original product, are in the same use class as the original product, and have no changes to the formula. How do you use the OMRI seal? Once your product is OMRI listed, your company will be authorized to reference OMRI in connection with each specific product name and use the OMRI seal on your product labels and packaging. The OMRI seal use policy and guidelines document contains information on how to use the OMRI seal compliantly on your labels. For seal placement, there is flexibility on where the OMRI seal can appear on your product labels or packaging. The OMRI seal guidelines can help you understand how to incorporate the seal on your product labels and ensure that the seal is readable and has breathing room in relation to other visual elements on the packaging. For seal color, OMRI green is preferred and works well for light colored packaging. When OMRI green does not work for your package, there's also black and white seals to fit your needs. If your packaging has a busy background, try placing a solid colored box behind the seal. Please do not change the design of the seal, such as by distorting or stretching it or altering its font or color. If you need help or have questions as you prepare your first product application, we encourage you to reach out to a real person for help. You can email apply@omri.org or send questions in Spanish to preguntas@omri.org. If you prefer to talk to somebody on the phone, you can also call us. My extension is listed there at 105. And I think that brings us all the way to the end here.
Thanks so much, Kara. I do have some questions from our participants today. So number one, are the standards in the United States and Canada different? And do we need separate registrations?
They are different. The way that the US is set up is that it has this synthetic, non-synthetic sort of structure. So like for crops products in general, non-synthetic materials are allowed and synthetic materials are prohibited, except what is the exceptions on the national list. But in Canada, they have what's called a permitted substances list. And so all the materials that are allowed are on the permitted substances list. And so if you go and look at their information online, which is the Canada Organic Regime is what it's called. We call it CORE. And then when you're submitting an application, you can select, I could show you that part in our little example over here. You can select, so it says standard use class and category. If I want another standard, I would select this button and I would choose Canada. So you'd be reviewed to both the US Organic Standard and the Canada Organic Standard.
Thanks, Kara.
Yeah.
I hope that felt answered. So our second question is whether this presentation will be available to participants after the webinar.
It will be. We're going to email out a link to both the presentation and the recording, since we're recording right now.
Perfect. Next, we have, are manufacturing processes kept confidential by OMRI?
Yeah, all information that's submitted is considered confidential. Our policy manual, I think it's, let me see if I can bring it up. Our policy manual has a description of what is considered confidential information and what is not considered confidential information. And the short answer is that anything you submit is considered confidential. There are exceptions in the policy manual that you can look at, which is like your company name, your product name, your product label. We assume your product label is public facing, and so we would give it to anybody who contacted us. If you want to read, I'm just going to show you the index here. So if you want to read more about the confidentiality policy, it's at section 1.6 in the policy manual. And I just went to, you have to be logged in, but you would go to the applicant menu and then manuals and review standards to look at that. And the policy manual is the first one listed there.
All right. Kara, what is OMRI's current review time for product applications?
Our median review time is currently about 3 months. It depends on what type of application you submit. Generally, there are faster review times for products that are reviewed to the US organic guidelines and reviewed for use on crops. And that's just because we have more reviewers trained to review those types of products because those are the majority of products that we receive. And then another quicker review is for repackaged products because we're just reviewing the label and determining that, yes, indeed, you are repackaging an OMRI listed product. So those are generally faster than the median 3-month review time.
Great. Another question is, how would one know how much they'll need to pay for an OMRI application?
The best way to determine it is by filling out the application, and it gives you the fees in a detailed section. But you can also go to get listed and review cost. The first fee would be the $50 fee, which you would pay to set up your account. We call it an application kit, but it's generally setting up your account so that you can log in and submit an application online. You only need to pay one of those fees. As long as you submit an application within the next 25 months, you wouldn't need to pay that fee again. Your application kit will only expire if you do not submit an application kit or submit an online application within 25 months. And then you'll be given the option to pay another $50 and you'll have another 25 months. And then for your first application, it describes the company fee here. It's on a sliding scale. So it depends on what your total annual gross sales is, and you'll be able to select this fee within your first application. So you'll tell us, my company makes under $1 million a year or what have you. And that'll run the total on the top of the application. And then these fees are determined by what you enter into the formulation section. So if you have a single ingredient product, the formulation section will count one ingredient and it will say that you owe $295. If you enter more than one ingredient, it will say you owe $960. If you indicate in the beginning of the application that you're submitting a repackaged product, you'll owe $295, which is the same as the single ingredient product fee. If you would like to have a product reviewed to an additional standard, which means either you are submitting an application for both the US and Canada, there'd be an additional fee of $295 to have it reviewed to the second standard that you indicate on the application. Or if you submit a second application, maybe later on, like if your product gets listed to the US organic standard guidelines, and then 6 months later, you think, I also want to extend into Canada, so I need another review, you would submit an application specifically for a review to an additional standard. And there's a question within the application that says, has this product been reviewed to a different standard or use class before? And you would answer yes, and it would charge you that fee. There are other fees here, but they're all sort of dependent. There's a third-party confidentiality fee, and it just depends on whether or not you indicate in your application that you need a confidentiality agreement with a third party that's not willing to give you information directly to enter into the application. So you can look at these fees and kind of try to determine if they would apply to you or not. And again, it's under get listed and then review cost on the main page. And you don't need to be logged in to see that. Anybody can see that.
Thanks, Kara. Another one is, are fees ever refunded if a product gets prohibited?
No, fees are not refunded for prohibit decisions. Basically, the fee is a payment for us to review the product, not a payment for it to be listed.
Relatedly, if a product is determined to be allowed with restrictions, would one have to add those use restrictions to their product label?
Now, you're not required to add the product restrictions to your label. They'll appear on the OMRI listed certificate. And so anybody who's like a certified organic farmer or a facility owner would be looking at your certificate to see what the restrictions are, or if there are restrictions in the use of your product when they're working with their certifier.
All right. Those are all the questions we've received so far. So if anyone has others, please feel free to send those over to me in the chat. And again, if we didn't answer your question here, please send them over to us via email at apply@omri.org, or you can call the phone number that Kara had on the presentation if you'd prefer to speak with someone over the phone. Other than that, yeah, Kara, any other parting words?
Oh, just thank you so much for coming. And I hope that this was really helpful. We get a lot of these questions from people, so we thought it would be helpful to create a webinar and just invite folks to do it in a group setting. So thank you so much for coming.
We actually did get a few more questions in that
Cool.
minute. So yeah, if y'all can stay, please feel free. One question is, when using OMRI listed ingredients in a product formulation, what supporting documentation is needed for those OMRI listed ingredients?
So if you are purchasing an OMRI listed product and using it as an ingredient, or maybe you're using your own OMRI listed product, if you know, in the future have a whole bunch of OMRI listed products, you can use your own as well. But you would, if you're buying somebody else's, you would show us a proof of purchase. And the proof of purchase would need to include the product name very distinctly so that we know that you're purchasing that OMRI listed product. Um, and then if you don't have a proof of purchase, you can also submit a letter of intent to sell from the manufacturer or your supplier. But that letter would also need to be very explicit in it is this OMRI listed product that they are going to sell. And that would come from the manufacturer or the supplier of the ingredient. And then you'd be able to submit that in lieu of a proof of purchase if you haven't purchased the ingredient yet. But if you've purchased the ingredient already, you'd be able to submit that.
All right, we do have another question here asking whether the Mexican certificate, I take this as an LPO question, whether that's a separate application.
We're not reviewing to the Mexico organic guidelines anymore. We closed the program, I think, earlier this year. So we're just accepting applications for review to the Canada organic guidelines and the US organic guidelines.
There are no other questions in the chat at this moment, so.
Okie dokie. Well, thanks, everybody. We can end it there if we're all finished.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us.